It's August, so I thought it would be nice to do a little wrap up of my reading in July, which was an especially good month for me. So, yeah, let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Orla from Write With Órla, and thank you so much for joining me today. I have been having a pretty rough year when it comes to reading, and there's been loads of different reasons for that. The quantity of the books that I've been reading has been pretty good, and definitely it's been one of my higher years in terms of the quantity, but the quality of what I'm reading has not been great. And a large part of that is because, as many of you know by now, if you've been following along, I am on month 4 of a broken leg. And for the first 2 months, I was on like all sorts of pain medication and anti-inflammatories and blah, blah, blah. And I had to get surgery for my leg, which meant I had to recover from general anesthetic. And my head was just not at the races. So I found it really difficult to read. And it was just so frustrating because for the first time in my adult life, I had this stretch of 8 weeks where I was off work because I wasn't well. I couldn't do housework because I was, recovering from a broken leg. And I had all this free time because the kids were at daycare and my in laws were here helping us. And I had all this free time and I couldn't write because my brain was struggling to form coherent thoughts. And anytime I picked up a book to read, I just couldn't follow along. So I went and started reading more YA again. And usually I love YA, but I think the caliber of what I was reading just wasn't great. So when I look back on the books that I've read so far this year, it's a lot of like 2 and 3 stars. But July, July was a really, really solid month for me. So I'm not going to waffle for too much longer. Let's just get straight into it. What did I read this month? And again, for the first time ever, I have a little bit of a TBR to get through for August. And usually I'm a vibe reader. I just read whatever I'm in the mood for. But I do have a couple of books that I need to read in August. So we'll get to that at the end of the video as well. I'll link all the books that I'm talking about below if you want to have a look and check them out yourself. I am predominantly a library user, so I get my books at the library. I don't have Amazon storefront or any of that kind of stuff. So what I'll be linking you to is just the Goodreads page for the book, so you can read the reviews yourself. So, yes, the first book that I read in July was The Accomplice to the Villain. And this is the third book in the Assistant to the Villain series. It's a cozy fantasy series that follows the main character, Evie, who is struggling to find a job to provide for her family, and she stumbles upon this man who she helps evade from some soldiers, and turns out he's like the villain that the kingdom's king, words, is trying to capture. So he's like the arch nemesis of the king, and he offers her a job as his assistant, and she takes it, and it's described as like The Office, but set in a fantasy world. And I can really see that for sure, except there's no real Michael Scott character. It's just lots of like fairies and im. Sorry. I'm gonna just give me a minute. I'll get back to this. Okay. There's lots of fairies and imps and pukas and all these kind of like classic fairy tale fantasy creatures. And there's like office shenanigans, and then there's the overarching plot of the apprentice and the villain. And it's a cozy fantasy. It's also a bit of a romance fantasy or romantasy. So there is that element of the relationship as well. And yeah, Accomplice to the Villain is the third in the series. The fourth is actually coming out this week on 6th of August. And I'm on the fence about whether or not I will read it. It might be one of those ones that I put a hold on at the library and then I'll decide when it becomes available. Um, because I really enjoyed the first two. The third one, I feel like the plot just wasn't there. The characters are great, the shenanigans are great, the dialogue is really witty. Um, but the actual plot was just a little bit discombobulated for me. So I wasn't sure the author, Hannah Nicole Maehrer, was hitting the beats that she wanted to be hitting with the plot in this one. So overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. But yeah, like it's comfort food. It was a good read. It was an easy read. I did enjoy it. But just in terms of plot, the plot just wasn't quite there for me. Unlike my second book that I read in July, which is The Jasad Heir by Sara Hashem. And this is the first book in a duology, and I love duologies. I don't know why. I feel like some fantasy series insist on being a trilogy, and the first will be really good, the second will be a bit flat, and then the third will be good. And then it often makes me wonder, like, just cut out the middle one and have a really solid duology, and that would be so much more enjoyable. But yeah, so the Jasad Heir is part of the Scorched Crown duology, and it's adult fantasy. It's following one main character called Sylvia, and we learn pretty early on that she has some magic that she's keeping under wraps because it's forbidden to have magic in this world. And it's a little bit tropey in this first one. It's very much like there's the enemies to lovers romantic trope. There's the kingdom's like enforcer or general of the army or whatever who has to pick a champion to compete in a competition in order to win a prize, and meanwhile she has this secret identity. It really felt like Throne of Glass for me, but the twist on it was that it was all Egyptian inspired. So a lot of the mythologies that were referenced in it were based off Egyptian culture. The food was all based off Egyptian culture, the clothes, the scenery, um, which I really, really enjoyed. It sort of took away, for me, it took away from the tropiness of it, because having those tropes lent me some familiarity with the story and what the author was trying to do. And it meant then that I could actually enjoy the insertion of the Egyptian culture. And it meant that when she referenced something that was completely unknown to me, I was able to quite quickly jump out of the story, look it up on Google, and then jump back into the story. And then I would have a richer image in my head. And like some of this is really like basic, like she would describe a food or she would use a word in Arabic and I wouldn't know what it was, so I'd go and I'd Google it and then I'd come back in. And then some of it was a bit larger, like she'd be discussing a mythical creature and would be wondering, is this something that's part of Egyptian mythology or is this something that she's come up with herself? So I felt for this book having the tropes did work because it helped with allowing me to engage with the elements of the story that were completely unfamiliar to me, and had, for me anyway, like a steep learning curve. I am a very visual reader. I like to imagine the story as I'm reading it. I like to picture the characters and what they're doing and what they're eating and what they're wearing. So having a beautifully written descriptive story, but that's all using terminology that I'm not familiar with. Yeah, like I really enjoyed it. I don't know if this is sounding like I did, but I actually did really, really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Um, and I had the sequel to the story, to the first one, lined up, so I was able to just jump straight into it. So The sequel to the Jasad Heir is the Jasad Crown, and it's very different to the first one, which again to me just lent itself really, really well to the duology as a whole. It's like you have the first one that has like a couple of the tropes, but it means that you get to know the characters really well, you get to know the story really well, their backgrounds, and you can focus on the world building because you're not trying to figure out what's going to happen. Because if the main character is the champion in a competition and it's a duology, unless the author is going to do something really really extreme with the twist, it's probably the same characters in the sequel, that kind of way. So yeah, like the second one being so different in terms of the plot to the first one really, really lent itself well. I'm not going to go into the plot because I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I loved it. And again, it has elements of romance to it. It's like an adult fantasy book with elements of romance, but the romance was quite closed door, which I enjoyed. I think sometimes with adult fantasy books that have that element of romance, especially the ones that are really, really popular at the moment. And look, I'm holding my hand up. I read those too, okay? There is no shade being thrown here. I read those too. I enjoy them as well. But sometimes you just want to read a book that has that romantic relationship and has the platonic relationships, but that's not the sole focus. I'm not particularly a romance reader. Like I don't read contemporary romance, but I do like seeing those relationship dynamics play out as part of a subplot of the overall plot. And I felt the Jasad Crown did that really, really well. And yeah, I absolutely, absolutely loved it. It was another 4 stars for me. Really, really enjoyed it. Then the fourth and final book that I read in July was The Call of the Wind, and this is by an author called K.R. House. It's her debut novel, and it's an indie published book. And this is my first time actually reading an indie published book, really just because like there's no real reason, I suppose. I think indie published books sometimes can be harder to access than traditionally published, especially when you're predominantly a library reader. Um, like most of the time for me, if it's not on Libby, I'm probably not going to read it. Now, I did have Kindle Unlimited while I was recovering from the broken leg, so there's a couple of books that I read that I got through Kindle Unlimited. But for Call of the Wind, I actually reached out to the author and asked her how I could buy her book in Ireland because she was selling them on her website, and she was so lovely and directed me towards Amazon. So I did end up buying a physical copy of the book because I really wanted to support this up and coming indie author. And yeah, so The Call of the Wind is the first book in the series. It's a young adult fantasy, and it's following the stories of two brothers, Mark and Elias. And they live in a society where some people get blessed by Gaia and they become what's called life callers, where they're able to manipulate like vegetation, plants, trees, that kind of thing. And Elias one day discovers that he's been blessed with wind calling, and wind callers are sort of seen as the enemy in this society. So it's how they're going to deal with that. And the story kind of splits where Mark and Elias end up going down very different paths. And I absolutely loved it. Really, really loved it. It was fun. It was clever. The world building was really, really on point. I felt completely immersed. The author had built this whole religious structure for the life callers, and you felt part of that religion. So then when somebody from outside came in and started introducing questions, it kind of hit you a little bit. You're like, oh, like you could really feel Elias's and Mark's world being rocked a little bit by this introduction of other concepts and other religious beliefs. Really loved it, really did. So I did give that 4 stars out of 5 as well on Goodreads. And Kate or House was kind enough to give me an advanced reader copy of the sequel to The Call of the Wind, which is called The Cost of Ruin, and I'm reading that at the moment. It's being released on the 18th of August. So I want to have it read and have my review up on Goodreads ready to go before it gets published. And again, so far I'm really enjoying it. Really, really enjoying it. Not a trope to be seen. And again, I love tropes. They're great in certain contexts, but it's so refreshing to read a book that just has this real sense of like a creative, what am I trying to say? A unique story. I've KR House is really creative with their story writing, so highly, highly recommend The Call of Wind. And then when The Cost of Runes comes out, I think I'll probably be recommending that one as well. Unless something disastrous happens, I cannot see myself not loving The Cost of Runes. So they're the 4 books that I've read this month. 4 would be like an average to high number of books for me to read. My reading goal for the year was to read 1 book every 2 weeks. And just because of the way life has gone this year, I've actually been able to read a book a week, which is, for me, is quite a lot. So to read 4 books in July, it's a pretty good number. But more importantly, the books that I read were really enjoyable. And I loved them. They were so good. I was so happy in July reading my books. In August, I have 3 books that I'm planning to read. So I want to finish Cost of Runes, just because the author did give me an arc. So I want to have that finished and have my review published before it comes out. I also want to read Wild Houses by Colin Barrett. So if any of you saw my All Ireland final video, I said that my next read was going to be based on whoever won that match, and Maehrer won. And I put a poll up on YouTube and up on Instagram of 3 Maehrer authors and books to say, like, my viewers pick what I read, and Wild Houses was the winner. So that one is about it's like a family feud that happens in a small town called Ballina in County Mayo, and it all takes place over a weekend. So I have it on order from my Irish library, but they actually had it on the shelf ready to go in my New Zealand library. So that's already loaded into my Libby app. Looking forward to that. And then the 3rd book that I really want to read is, I actually have a physical copy for this one, A Forsaken Prophecy by Stacey McEwan. So I did a review video of the 1st book in this series, which was called A Forbidden Alchemy. And oh my gosh, I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. So much so that I actually went out and bought it. I had waited for it in the library for 10 weeks, and then I got it the day I got admitted into hospital to get surgery on my leg. The library said, "Hey, this book that you've been waiting for 10 weeks is now ready." So I had borrowed it so I wouldn't lose my place in the queue, and then was sick and couldn't read and couldn't focus on anything that required too much concentration. And then all of a sudden, the book was due back at the library, and I had 1 day, and I did not want to wait another 10 weeks to read it. So I sat and I read the whole thing in 8 hours. And part of that was because I wanted to get it finished, but the biggest part of it was because I just couldn't put it down. I absolutely loved it. I do have a review of A Forbidden Alchemy up on my YouTube video, or on my YouTube channel. But yeah, A Forsaken Prophecy is the sequel. So I felt I loved Forbidden Alchemy so much that I bought a copy. So I said I'd buy a copy of A Forsaken Prophecy because I really didn't want to wait 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it was, at the library to read it. So yes, this is going to be my 3rd book for August, and we'll see how we go from there. So yeah, that was my reading for July. I had so much fun reading these books. I really, really did. Like, yourself, you don't have a lot of free time. So I really feel if you want to make the most of your free time, you should really read things that bring you joy. I know when I was younger, I used to be a little bit snobby about what I read, and I was only going to read things that made me more intellectual and made me like more interesting and come across as smarter. And I still read those kind of books if I enjoy them. But now I don't have a huge amount of free time, especially because I am writing my own book. So I try to choose things that are going to actually bring me joy. What books am I going to enjoy reading? And what books are actually going to teach me a little bit more about the art of reading as well, and the art of writing too. So that was my July recap. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've read any of these books and you want to share your thoughts and opinions, please do in the comments down below. And yeah, I might do another one of these recaps in August, see how I get on with the 3 books that I've mentioned here today. And we'll just go from there. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a really great day, and I'll chat to you again soon. Bye.